Okay, hi everyone. We are going to this odd topic in geography in everyday life. All right. So if you go to your textbook, right, and you look at page 11, thinking geographically, 1.3 relationship between locations in a neighborhood. We have used this to talk about spatial association as well as synergy. Okay, synergy which is found in 1.4. Okay, so what we are left behind is this spatial pattern, which is in the SLS lesson, as well as these regions. Okay, because these two parts are a bit out of place from the rest of the topic, we choose to put it at the end, and it's actually rather simple, so we decided to do it through recording instead. Okay, so these spatial patterns and regions are actually what we call spatial representation. Okay, now this term is not really in your syllabus, but just giving you an idea why we're talking about this, because in geography, a lot of times we represent spaces. So spaces represented becomes spatial representation. Okay, now we always represent spaces because that's how we understand it. Okay, and then we keep it in our brain in a particular manner. And it also reflects how we understand a space or place, or how others represent a space or place. Okay, why do we study such things? It's because it helps us to understand how people see the world, and these representations can influence how people think about spaces. Okay, and help us understand how spaces are really related to each other. So we are looking at regions today, and then slowly we go a bit beyond syllabus to help you see other than spatial hierarchy and synergy. How does regions, the concept of regions representing spaces, parts of Singapore as regions, actually affect how we plan the whole city, how we do urban planning? Okay, so let's get to the term first. Now, from Sec 1 and Sec 2, you've already learned the term regions, or what we call geographical regions. Okay, so what are geographical regions? A geographical region is a region that consists of several countries. Okay, so example of regions that you know, you have learned that in Singapore, we are living in which region? We are living in Southeast Asia. Okay, so it's made up of several countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. Okay, so all the Southeast Asian countries. Okay, you may also heard of, let's say, Western Europe. Okay, so Western Europe is a group of countries in Europe, okay, like France, UK, okay, Germany and stuff like that. Okay, so maybe let's load up the map, be easier to see. Okay, so a few of these countries here from Western Europe. Okay, that's another region. Okay, you may also heard of South Asia as another region: Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Bhutan, Nepal. You may also heard of East Asia, that means China, Korea, the two Koreas, Taipei, Japan, and stuff like that. Okay, so basically, when there's more than one country, multiple countries grouped together, we call them a region. You have learned this in Sec 1 and Sec 2. Okay, region as a larger scale of a country. All right, now this is where it gets a bit confusing. Okay, so we have learned the proper geographical one, but there's also human defined regions. Okay, and the problem with this is that it cuts across various scales. All right, so it can be, so we learn very clearly geographical region is multiple country grouped together, right? That's one region. So when we say regional scale, we automatically know that it is of a larger scale than a single country. So for example, if you're looking at just Singapore, it's a national scale. Just Malaysia is a national scale. But if you look at multiple countries together, it is regional scale. Okay, but for this thing here, region, this human defined region, it can be as small as within a country or even smaller within a town. Okay, so it is very fluid. So what is this human defined regions? Basically, human defined regions is how humans group places with similar characteristics together. Okay, so it is more or less written in your textbook as that. All right, it's classified according to different similar characteristics. Okay, so it can be physical, that means it's natural, and or human characteristics. Okay, now when I say it can cut across scales, that means it can also vary in sizes as well. Okay, so there's this new region that we learn. So region, when we say, most of the time we say region, we mean geographical region. But today what we're looking at is this human-defined region. That means humans may group certain places together, okay, and then consider them as one region. Okay, maybe we're more accurate. The human group different areas. Okay, so examples. Some of you may think of, for example, Eastern Singapore. Okay, or versus Western Singapore, East versus West, you know, which is the better place in Singapore. Some people may actually look at maybe natural areas, natural region versus human regions in Singapore. Okay, so let's try within Singapore or within a small scale. How do you think these regions are defined? Okay, so for example here, forest versus non-forested area. How do we define what is similar that we group together? Okay, so the nature reserve will be the natural area, and then we talk about the human region. All right, so the other parts that is built by humans is a human region. Okay, how about this picture? How can you group them? What are similar areas you can group together? Okay, some people might say, oh, these are taller buildings versus shorter buildings, or some people say these are newer buildings versus older buildings. Also can. Okay, so you may define as a taller region of taller buildings versus region of shorter buildings, or if you want to go by age, modern region versus older region. Also possible. Okay, what's another way of defining group places that's similar? You can see that Singapore break initiative means how we govern, how we look after the place. Okay, so which group is look after which area. All right, so Singapore actually broke out into 5 regions. Okay, there's the North, West, Central, although the Central is quite south, but they call it Central, North, East, and East region. Okay, so what do you think how they break this region? How do they group them? All right, they more or less group them based on geographical direction, right? So we region based on cardinal direction. So we have the North versus the West, okay, versus the Central, etc. All right, so this is one way people group. Humans may make humans define region based on the cardinal direction, the geographical directions. Okay, and sometimes they may group regions based on services. All right, so the sphere of influence. So you can see, remember, town center has a larger sphere of influence. Okay, so they may go by town region, maybe versus neighborhood region. Okay, so when we look at region in this context, human defined region, we have to abandon what we learned from Sec 1. Not really abandon, we just park it aside. Okay, that region, instead of consisting of several countries, this is a lot more fluid, because humans, as long as they group things together that's similar, is considered as a region. Okay, so like here I can group old versus new, tall versus short, or here I can group based on sphere of influence, like neighborhood versus town and things like that. I can group by cardinal direction, north, south, east, west. Okay, I can even build by human versus nature, so natural region versus human region. Okay, so anything under the sun can be defined as a human region, as a human defined region. And as you can see, the size really varies in scale. It's not necessarily a scale that is involving multiple countries. Okay, so that's the confusing part about human defined regions. Okay, now how does this affect urban planning? Okay, sorry, let me go to the next part. Now, how do we represent regions on maps? Okay, so most of the time we will draw a boundary, we will draw lines, right? You will draw lines to represent boundaries. We may also use shading to represent areas. Okay, so this is what when we draw an area like this, we are saying that this is one region. All right, or we can use the line to separate. This is the boundary between one region and another region. Okay, so how does region affects urban planning? This is not really in syllabus, but just letting you know so that you can better understand how link this concept to other parts. Okay, so initially when they planned Singapore's layout, right? This is the 1971 concept plan, all right? It's very simple, okay? So they just say that, all right, this is the industrial region, this is the commercial region, the rest will be just residential region, okay? So this is why they lay it out like this, okay? And then when they move on to the 1990s, they realized that, hey, we have more and more population. We cannot have in the morning everybody rushing to the west and the south to get to work, and then after work everybody rush back to different parts. It's too much of a strain of our transport system. It's too inconvenient. Okay, so they decided, why not we break it up into smaller regions. Okay, and each of the smaller regions will have jobs, will have commercial activities, will have industries, so that people don't really need to travel far. All right, so they divided into these 5 regions. What do you think they are called? They are divided according to what characteristics? Okay, they are divided according to this, actually the direction, cardinal direction. Okay, so once they divided it into 5 main regions, this is where they decided that, okay, it is, each region will have its own business and industrial center. Okay, and from there we will concentrate the transport there as well. All right, now this is the administrative regions of Singapore. They divided up, so there's there's about 45 of them, so different it's very clear who's in charge of what. Okay, so within these regions, these few administrative regions these few areas that they have defined, each region will have its own businesses and industries, so that people don't have to travel all the way across the island for it. Okay, so you can see that they have drawn grey lines as boundaries. They have used different colors as to mark out the area as well. Okay, so how does it then eventually lead to this? Okay, so this is what the regional plan looks like. Okay, so the north and the northeast is connected by this business. So you can see all the blue color, all the businesses. That's why you see Woodlands. So Woodlands is the regional center for the north region. Okay, so it's like a mini CBD. So you see office buildings like Wood Square over there. You see more transport station there, like you have the new Thomson East Coast Line and the North-South Line. Okay, then you also have industrial parks and business parks over here. This is the new SIT that they're opening in Punggol. Okay, then the west, you also have the Tuas, but you also have the developing Jurong Lake District and Jurong Innovation District as new office buildings. Okay, so that's why you see multiple lines over here, Jurong Regional Line, you see North-South Line, East-West Line that's starting over here, okay, to serve this as a regional center. Of course, you have the CBD for the whole of Singapore, and of course you have Buona Vista, but you also have the Tampines. So Tampines, if you go to Tampines, you will see that you have 3 main malls, each with office buildings. Okay, then you see big facilities like Tampines Hub. Okay, why? Because it is meant to be like a mini CBD for the eastern region. Okay, so by having regions, we decide to spread out the services so that jobs are not concentrated only in some parts of Singapore. Okay, so into all these regions that you see. So what's the point of doing this? Okay, so the main idea is to ensure that each region is able to meet all the needs of the residents, or we call it self-sustaining, so that the residents need not, in the whole of Singapore, need not crowd at 1 or 2 locations, example the CBD or Jurong Industrial Estate, for jobs and services. Okay, so by defining regions in Singapore, we use direction to carve out different regions. It helps us decide where we want to put our jobs, our services, so that we will not need to all crowd around Jurong and the CBD area. Okay, so that's all we have for regions, a very short thing. How do we ask questions about this? I'm not very sure also. Hopefully by next year we'll be able to give you some ideas. Okay.